It was November 3rd, a freezing Monday morning, and I was standing on my parents' front porch, holding two trash bags filled with everything I owned when my mother looked me in the eye and said something I'll never forget. You're not family anymore, Emily. Grandpa made his choice, and now we're making ours. Then she shut the door in my face. I stood there staring at the house where I'd lived for 26 years. The house where I'd celebrated birthdays, Christmas mornings, graduations, and family dinners. The house I'd helped maintain after my father suffered his back injury. The house I'd returned to after college to help care for my grandfather when his health began declining. And just like that, I was homeless. The worst part? I had absolutely no idea why, at least, not yet. Looking back now, that was the moment everything started. Just 3 days earlier, my grandfather's attorney had called the family together after Grandpa passed away at 89 years old. My grandfather, Richard Thompson, had built one of the largest commercial real estate companies in our state. By the time he died, his estate was worth approximately $21 million. Everyone in the family knew there would be an inheritance. What nobody knew was how Grandpa had decided to divide it. The reading of the will took place in a conference room downtown. My parents sat across from me. My older brother Jason sat beside them. My Aunt Carol and her husband were there too. The atmosphere was tense but polite. At first, the attorney began reading. Grandpa had left generous donations to several charities, money for his church, money for a veterans organization, several gifts to longtime employees. Then came the family. Jason received a trust fund worth nearly $2 million. My aunt received $3 million. Various cousins received smaller amounts. My parents were awarded $4 million. Everyone seemed pleased. Then the attorney reached the final section. I remember the exact moment, his glasses lowered slightly as he looked directly at me. To my granddaughter, Emily Thompson, who showed me more kindness, loyalty, and love in my final years than anyone else, I leave my remaining estate, including company shares, properties, investment accounts, and liquid assets. The room went completely silent. My heart nearly stopped. The attorney continued, "The estimated value is approximately $12 million. Nobody moved, nobody spoke. Then Jason laughed, not because it was funny, because he thought he had heard wrong. What? The attorney repeated himself. My brother's face turned white, my father's jaw clenched. My mother's expression changed so quickly it honestly scared me. I wasn't celebrating, I wasn't smiling, I was shocked. Completely shocked. I never expected that amount. Never. Then something happened that changed everything. My father stood up. "There's been a mistake." The attorney calmly shook his head. "There has not." My father slammed both hands on the table. "That girl manipulated him." I felt like someone punched me in the stomach. "Dad. Don't call me Dad right now." The room exploded. Jason accused me of turning Grandpa against the family. My aunt claimed I had isolated him. My mother started crying, not because she was hurt, because she was furious. The attorney repeatedly reminded them that the will had been updated 3 years earlier and reviewed multiple times. Everything was legal. Everything was deliberate. Grandpa knew exactly what he was doing. I thought that was the worst part. I was wrong. For 2 days, my family refused to answer my calls. They ignored my messages. Then my mother texted me. "We need to talk." I drove home immediately. Big mistake. The second I walked through the door, I knew something was wrong. My suitcases were sitting near the entrance. My clothes, my books, my belongings, everything. My father pointed toward them. "Take your things and leave." I laughed nervously. I genuinely thought it was a joke. It wasn't. "We don't want you here." I stared at him. "What are you talking about?" Jason walked into the room. "You stole our inheritance." "I didn't steal anything." My mother folded her arms. "You manipulated an old man." The accusation felt unreal. For years, I had been the only grandchild regularly helping Grandpa. Not because of money, because everyone else was busy. Jason visited twice a year. My aunt came on holidays. My parents lived 20 minutes away, but rarely stopped by. I was the one driving him to appointments. I was the one grocery shopping. I was the one sitting beside him during chemotherapy. I was the one listening when he felt lonely. But suddenly that history meant nothing. Their minds were made up. I was the villain, and they wanted me gone. I wish I had known what was coming next. Over the following weeks, my entire family turned against me. Relatives stopped calling. Friends of the family treated me differently. Rumors spread. Apparently, I had manipulated Grandpa. Apparently, I had pressured him. Apparently, I had somehow tricked an 89-year-old businessman with decades of legal experience. The accusations were ridiculous, but people believed them. One afternoon, I walked into a coffee shop and overheard two relatives discussing me. She knew exactly what she was doing. Poor Richard didn't stand a chance. I left without ordering. I sat in my car and cried for nearly an hour. The inheritance suddenly felt less like a blessing and more like a curse. But what I discovered a few days later left me speechless. I received a call from Grandpa's attorney. His voice sounded serious. "Emily, there's something you need to see." I drove to his office immediately. When I arrived, he closed the door behind me. Then he slid a thick file across his desk. "What is this?" "Your grandfather instructed me to give this to you only if certain events occurred." A chill ran through me. "What events?" He looked directly at me. "If your family reacted exactly the way they did." I froze. The attorney opened the file. Inside were handwritten letters, documents, recorded statements, financial records, years of evidence. And that's when I learned something that would change everything. My grandfather hadn't simply left me the inheritance because I cared for him. He had uncovered something far darker. For nearly a decade, several family members had been secretly taking money from him, small amounts at first, then larger amounts, unauthorized withdrawals, credit cards, business reimbursements, personal loans that were never repaid. The total amount exceeded $4 million. My hands started shaking. "What?" The attorney nodded. "Your grandfather discovered it years ago." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My own parents? My brother? My aunt? The attorney opened another document. These weren't guesses. There were bank statements, signed records, games, transfers, everything. The evidence was overwhelming. Grandpa had confronted them privately years earlier. Instead of apologizing, they denied everything, so he began documenting it, quickly, carefully. I stared at the papers. He knew all this? Every bit of it. Then the attorney handed me a sealed envelope. Written across the front were 6 words, "For Emily, when the truth matters." My eyes filled with tears. I opened it carefully. Inside was a letter from Grandpa. His handwriting instantly brought back memories. The letter explained everything. He wrote that he had watched family members treat him like a bank account. He wrote that people only visited when they wanted something. He wrote that he spent years hoping they would change. They never did. Then came the sentence that broke me. "Emily, you were the only person who visited when you needed nothing." I couldn't stop crying. The attorney gave me time to read. Grandpa's final pages contained something unexpected. A warning. He believed the family would challenge the will. He believed they would come after me. And he had prepared for that possibility. Looking back now, I realize Grandpa knew exactly who they were long before I did. 3 weeks later, the lawsuit arrived. My parents, my brother, my aunt, all suing me, claiming fraud, undue influence, manipulation. They wanted the entire inheritance invalidated. The legal battle officially began, and they had no idea what my attorney had just uncovered, but neither did I. Not yet, because the biggest secret in Grandpa's file was still waiting to be discovered. And when it finally came out, it destroyed everything they had built. The lawsuit arrived on a Thursday afternoon. I remember sitting alone in my apartment, staring at the stack of legal papers spread across my kitchen table. My parents wanted the will overturned. My brother wanted a larger share of the estate. My aunt claimed I had manipulated Grandpa during his final years. According to their attorneys, I was a greedy granddaughter who had isolated an elderly man from his family and convinced him to rewrite his will. The accusations were outrageous. But what scared me was that they sounded believable. People hear $21 million, and suddenly everyone becomes suspicious. I barely slept that night. I kept replaying every moment I'd spent with Grandpa, every doctor's appointment, every hospital visit, every conversation over coffee. I knew the truth, but would a judge believe it? Would a jury? Then something happened that changed everything. The next morning, my attorney called. "Emily, I need you to come in." His tone was calm, but there was something underneath it, something serious. When I arrived, several large folders were sitting on the conference table. My attorney looked almost stunned. "I spent all night reviewing your grandfather's records." "And?" He leaned forward. "Your grandfather wasn't just documenting missing money." I felt my stomach tighten. "What do you mean?" He slid a document toward me. "Emily, he was conducting his own investigation." I stared at him. "What?" "Over several years." The room suddenly felt smaller. My attorney opened one folder after another. Maymon's financial statements, recorded transactions, business reports, signed acknowledgments. And then I understood. Grandpa hadn't simply discovered that money was missing. He had uncovered an organized pattern. My family had been using him for years, and they were far more careless than they realized. I thought that was shocking. I was wrong. The deeper we dug, the worse it became. My father had convinced Grandpa to invest in several fake business opportunities. The investments never existed. The money disappeared. Jason had used company credit cards for luxury vacations, expensive cars, private club memberships, things he claimed were business expenses. My aunt had secretly borrowed against properties Grandpa owned without properly disclosing it. The total damage wasn't $4 million. It was closer to $7 million. $7 million. I couldn't even process the number. These were the same people calling me greedy, the same people accusing me of manipulation, and yet they had spent years quietly draining Grandpa's finances. What I discovered a few days later left me speechless. Inside one of Grandpa's files was a flash drive. The attorney nearly missed it. At first, we assumed it contained copies of financial records. It didn't. It contained videos, dozens of them, short recordings Grandpa had made over several years. Sometimes he sat in his office, sometimes at home, sometimes in hospital rooms. In each recording, he spoke directly to the camera. He discussed family events, business matters, personal observations, and eventually the inheritance. I sat there watching video after video. Then we reached one that made my heart stop. Grandpa looked straight into the camera. His voice was weak but steady. "If you're watching this, there is a good chance certain family members are challenging my will." I felt tears forming instantly. He continued. "I want it clearly understood that Emily never asked me for $1. I couldn't breathe, not once." My attorney paused the video. Neither of us spoke. Then Grandpa's continued. "The people most upset by my decisions are likely the people who spent years taking advantage of me." I stared at the screen. The evidence couldn't have been stronger. He explained exactly why he changed his estate plan. He described the missing money, the lies, the manipulation, the broken trust, everything. And it was all recorded years before his death. I never expected those words to change my life. Over the next several months, the lawsuit moved forward. Depositions began. Evidence was exchanged. Attorneys demanded documents. Experts reviewed records. And slowly, my family's case started falling apart. At first, they acted confident. My father especially. Every time I saw him in legal proceedings, he looked convinced he would win. He avoided eye contact, pretended I didn't exist, as if I was the one who had betrayed him. Then the financial evidence entered discovery. Everything changed. Suddenly, their attorneys stopped making aggressive statements. Court filings became less confident, deadlines were extended, arguments shifted, and I knew why. They were finally seeing what Grandpa had documented. Looking back now, that was the moment everything started unraveling for them. The turning point came during a deposition. Jason was questioned under oath about several company expenses. At first, he denied everything. Then my attorney presented receipts, bank records, travel logs, credit card statements. One by one, the room became painfully quiet. Jason's confidence disappeared. His answers became shorter. His attorney looked increasingly uncomfortable. Finally, my attorney asked a simple question. Did your grandfather authorize these charges? Jason hesitated for nearly 10 seconds. Then he said something nobody expected. No. The room froze, because with that single word, years of lies began collapsing. I thought that was the biggest moment. I was wrong. A month later, settlement negotiations were scheduled. My family suddenly wanted to talk. The same people who had thrown me out, the same people who publicly accused me, the same people trying to steal my inheritance. Now they wanted peace. My attorney laughed when he heard their proposal. They're scared. And he was right. The evidence against them had become overwhelming. Not only were they losing the inheritance case, they were exposing themselves to potential civil liability, possibly worse. The meeting took place downtown. For the first time in nearly a year, I sat across from my entire family. Nobody looked confident anymore. My father looked exhausted. Jason looked nervous. My aunt wouldn't even look at me. Then my mother spoke. For a second, I thought she might apologize. Instead, she said something unbelievable. We can still resolve this. Resolve this, as if they hadn't tried to destroy my life, as if they hadn't made me homeless, as if they hadn't spent months attacking my reputation. I looked directly at her. Did any of you ever care about Grandpa? Nobody answered. The silence said everything. Then something happened that shocked even me. My attorney placed a tablet in the center of the table. He pressed play. Grandpa's video began. The room instantly went silent. Everyone watched. Nobody moved. Nobody interrupted. They listened as Grandpa described years of financial abuse. They listened as he explained exactly why he changed his will. They listened as he praised me. And then came the final statement, the one none of us had heard before. If my family is watching this after my death, understand this. The room felt frozen. I gave you countless opportunities to do the right thing. Nobody spoke. You didn't lose your inheritance because of Emily. My mother's eyes filled with tears. You lost it because of your own choices. The video ended, complete silence for nearly 30 seconds. Nobody knew what to say, because there was nothing left to argue. The truth had spoken for itself. What happened next shocked me. My aunt started crying, not dramatic crying, real crying, the kind that comes when someone finally realizes they've destroyed something they can never repair. Jason stared at the floor. My father looked 20 years older, and for the first time since this nightmare began, nobody blamed me, not a single person. A few weeks later, the lawsuit was dismissed, completely. My family received nothing beyond what Grandpa had already left them. The inheritance remained exactly as written. But that wasn't the end, because Grandpa's financial investigation led to additional civil proceedings regarding the missing funds. Several settlements followed. Crops were sold, debts were repaid, financial records were corrected. The consequences were enormous. Everything Grandpa had predicted eventually happened. The truth surfaced, the lies collapsed, and karma arrived without me lifting a finger. The most surprising moment came nearly a year later. I received a handwritten letter. It was from my mother, the first genuine communication since she threw me out. Inside was a simple apology, no excuses, no demands, no requests for money, just an apology. She admitted they had become obsessed with the inheritance. She admitted jealousy had poisoned the family. She admitted they convinced themselves I must have cheated because accepting the truth was too painful. I cried reading it, not because it fixed anything, because it finally acknowledged reality. Some relationships never recovered. My aunt moved away, Jason and I rarely speak. My father never fully apologized, but I stopped carrying the anger because I finally understood something. The inheritance was never Grandpa's final gift. The truth was, he knew exactly what would happen after he died. He knew who people really were, and somehow, even from beyond the grave, he protected me. Today, I still live in the same city. I manage several of the properties Grandpa left behind. I created scholarship programs in his name. I support the charities he loved. And every year on his birthday, I visit his favorite park and sit on the same bench where we used to talk for hours. Sometimes I think about that day on the porch, the day my mother told me I wasn't family anymore. Back then, I thought my life was ending. I couldn't have been more wrong, because, in trying to take everything from me, they revealed exactly who they were. And in the end, they lost far more than money. They lost the one thing Grandpa valued most, his trust. They took everything they could from him while he was alive, but in the end, the truth took everything back. And that was the day I stopped being their victim.